I'm 30 years old. I share a house with my sister, a two-floor place, a mother-daughter house, so it actually has two kitchens. My sister takes the downstairs. I take the upstairs. She isn't home a lot. She stays with her boyfriend most of the time, and he lives about 20 miles away. Now, I'm 30. I know I shouldn't let being home alone freak me out. But admittedly, sometimes it does. This happened on a night I was home alone. I was in my living room watching a scary movie. My part of the house is an open layout. Living room, dining room, and kitchen all one big space. My couch sits right in the middle of it, which means as I'm watching TV, my back is to a large part of the room behind me. For anyone who gets spooked easily, that's not the most comfortable setup. Sitting alone, in the dark. Nothing but the light from the TV pushing back the darkness. I'll admit, I found myself glancing over my shoulder a lot. I'd like to think I'm not the only 30-year-old man who does that. But anyway, after the movie ended, I brushed my teeth, turned off all the lights, and went to sleep. That sleep lasted about 2 hours. I woke up around 1 a.m., and at first, I didn't know why. Then I heard a voice downstairs. It sounded like my sister. It sounded like she was inside the house, not calling from outside, not knocking inside. I couldn't make out exactly what she was saying, but I recognized her voice. I was still groggy, though, not thinking straight. I figured maybe she'd come home, or maybe she was arguing with her boyfriend on the phone. So, I got up, walked out into the pitch-black hall, flicked on the light, and made my way through the living room. Then I heard her voice again, clearer this time. She was saying my name. I headed downstairs in the dark, calling back, "What is it?" Feeling around the wall in the foyer for a light switch I somehow couldn't find. I'm not exaggerating when I say I was barely awake. I shuffled down her hallway toward her kitchen, found a switch, and flicked it on. The light came up slow. One of those bulbs that takes a second to brighten, but even in that dim first moment I could see there was no one there. Not her, not her boyfriend, nobody. I walked to her bedroom, empty. I called her name loudly, once. No answer. But then, right after I called out, I heard something drop to the floor. In the bedroom. The same bedroom I had just checked. The one that was empty. I didn't wait around. I went back upstairs, got back to my room, locked the door, and grabbed my phone. I called my sister a few times. No answer. I sat there in the dark, wondering if I had just imagined all of it. Eventually, I fell asleep. In the morning, I woke up to a text from her asking why I'd called her at 1 a.m. I asked her, "Were you home last night?" No. She'd been at her boyfriend's the whole time. I went downstairs to her bedroom to see what might have fallen, what could have made that sound. There was nothing on the floor, not a single thing out of place. I want to believe I hallucinated it. I really do. That's the version of the story I'd rather live with. But I've never hallucinated before. No sleep disorders, nothing like that. And the way I heard her voice, how clearly I heard my name and that sound coming from an empty room. That's what keeps me up at night. I was left home alone a lot as a kid. My mom was single for a good chunk of my upbringing. She worked as an RN on one of those brutal RN schedules, and my brother had gone away to college. This particular night, my mom was working an overnight shift. It was a weekend, so I had this girl Molly over, someone I was talking to at the time. We hung out for a while, watched a couple movies, that kind of thing. Eventually, she had to head home because her parents didn't like her out late. So I was left alone to hold down the fort. I kept watching TV in my room, in bed. My bedroom is upstairs, right next to the backyard. So when someone dragged one of the chairs across the deck outside, I heard it. I got up and looked out the window, and I saw someone sitting in one of the deck chairs down below. I called out Molly's name, thinking maybe she'd come back. After all, she'd only left maybe 10 minutes ago. Whoever it was looked up at me. It wasn't Molly. I immediately pulled back from the window to hide. I didn't recognize that person, not in that darkness at least. I texted a few close friends in our group chat to see if one of them was messing with me. The ones who answered all said no and asked what I was talking about. Honestly, I didn't really believe any of my friends would show up to my house like that anyway. Scared out of my mind, but still curious, I slowly walked back over to the window and looked down again. That person was still sitting in the chair, still looking up at my window. It was a man. That much was clear, and he had definitely seen me. I hurried away from the window and turned off the TV. I sat on my bed in a ball, arms wrapped around my knees, waiting in the dark. I didn't even want to turn my phone screen on. I was scared he'd see the light through the window. I didn't want to move at all because the window was open and I was terrified he'd hear me. I wanted him to think I'd just left the room. I sat there like that for what had to be a solid 5 minutes, telling myself there was no way he was still out there. I finally worked up the courage to go back to the window and look down. I felt a small part of me die when I saw he was still there, still in that chair, still looking up. This time, instead of pulling away, I tried to be brave. I leaned out and sat down to him. "What do you want?" His shoulders started moving up and down like he was laughing. Hard, but there was no sound at first, just this faint whistling. He was laughing so hard he was wheezing. I asked him to please go away, then stepped back from the window and returned to my bed. I was scared to call the police. I don't fully know why, I just was. I left my room and sat at the top of the staircase listening. Then I heard it, the back door. It was being pushed. He was trying to get in. I ran back to my room. I was 14. I didn't know what else to do. A little while later, I heard the front door too. The handle being tested, the door being pushed. He gave up on that one quickly. Thank God. I closed my bedroom window and drew the curtains. If either of those doors had been unlocked, I don't know what would have happened. I was skinny and weak at 14, definitely not a fighter. I didn't leave my room again until my mom got home around 9 in the morning. I told her everything. Her reaction was anger. Not at the man, but at me for not calling 911. And honestly, looking back, she was right. That was one of the most questionable decisions I made that night, in a night full of them. This is the story of how I almost died as a kid, home alone. Probably the most intense night of my life. We're a family of 5. I was 10 at the time, my older brother was 14, and my little sister was 5. It was a Friday night. My brother was out with his friends, clearly causing trouble, because a dreaded phone call came in. I was in my room playing a Star Wars video game when I heard my mom start crying. I ran out to see what was wrong. She was on the phone with a hospital. My brother had been hit by a car. We were all shaken. His leg was broken. My parents rushed to get their coats on, grabbed my little sister, and asked me if I was okay to stay home alone. I said yes. They hurried out and left. I was worried about my brother, but I didn't want to go to the hospital and see him in bad shape. I don't think my parents wanted me there either. It's worth mentioning, he recovered just fine. His injury only matters here because it's the reason I ended up alone that night. I went back to my room and kept playing the game for a couple more hours. It was well past midnight by then. I turned off the TV and the PlayStation and climbed into bed with my Game Boy. Then I heard the front door open. I tried to listen for my parents' voices, some sound of them coming up the stairs. Nothing. Just silence. After a few minutes of that, something felt off. I quietly opened my bedroom door, walked to the banister, and looked down into the living room. The lights were off. There were 3 tall figures standing in the room below. They weren't my family. I stood there frozen for a second, then slowly backed into my room and shut the door as quietly as I could. But even in my panic, I knew. The door clicked. Not loud, but enough. I went straight to my closet, stepped inside, and tucked myself behind a pile of boxes and bags stuffed in the back. I sat there and waited. That short stretch of time felt like forever. My bedroom door opened. I heard footsteps move into the room, walk toward my bed, shuffle my covers around, then silence, then more footsteps, toward the closet. Then the closet door opened. I didn't look up. I didn't move. I just held my breath and stared at the floor. The door stayed open for what had to be a solid 20 seconds. Then it closed. The footsteps moved back across the room and out. It was about an hour later that I heard my parents come home. I ran downstairs. The front door had been left wide open. The people who broke in had stolen a number of valuables from the house. In the rush to get to the hospital, my parents hadn't locked the door when they left. A night that started badly had somehow gotten worse. Looking back, I think about that closet moment a lot. From where I was crouched behind those bags and boxes, I may have actually been visible. I'll never know if that person saw me and just walked away, or if he simply didn't notice me. Maybe he was only there to rob the house and had no interest in hurting a kid. Maybe I just got lucky. Either way, that question has never really left me. My skin still crawls thinking about this guy. He saw me shopping for school supplies and things for my new apartment one evening during my first week of grad school, and decided that I was his mark. I had just moved to my new college town. Didn't even have a cell phone yet after leaving the one my folks paid for during undergrad behind. I was grown, quote unquote, and could take care of myself. What a nitwit I was. As I left the parking lot with my purchases, I noticed this truck pull up behind me at the exit. It was late, and there weren't too many people out. I pulled out, and so did he. It was a few miles down a long retail street with lots of shop lights before my turn. As I drove, I realized the guy in the truck was trying to get my attention. I was in a relationship, so I ignored him. Over the next few miles, he kept trying to get me to look at him. Some red lights, he would end up ahead of me, some behind or beside. At every light, he positioned himself so he could stare at me, either directly or in one of his mirrors. His gaze was unwavering, and my anxiety rose. He was driving oddly, speeding up close to my bumper, hitting his brakes when he was in front of me, swerving close to my car a couple of times. Finally, at a red light where he was beside me, I glanced over and absolutely started to panic when I was met with an unbelievably empty, unwavering stare, and realized he was fiddling with himself. He was getting off on the fact that I was terrified. and he was following me, and he was trying to force me to pull over. At one point, I scooted through an intersection on a hard yellow a couple of cars ahead of him, thinking that I could shake him. Nope. He went around the cars at the light and ran the red and got back in front of me. A freeway entrance ramp came up, and I tried to fake him out by putting on my signal and getting into the merge lane for it. He took the bait and started up the ramp. I quickly got out of the merge lane and continued straight again. I had hoped to lose him, but he drove his truck down the embankment to keep following me. At another light, where he was beside me, I pulled through the light and then turned at the last possible second. He made a U-turn and ran another red light to follow me. My panic really ramped up at that point. With no cell phone, no sense of direction in a new city, I really didn't know what to do. So I turned on classic rock and forced myself to sing along and forced myself to go the speed limit so I wouldn't crash out of terrified stupidity. I decided to drive to the supermarket across town because I remembered it had a police station in it. He followed me all the way there. He burned out of the lot as soon as he saw all the cop cruisers parked out front. I filed a report and asked for a police escort home. I insisted because something told me this creep was waiting for me to leave the police station. He was. As soon as I pulled out, I saw him. I pulled over and told the officer following me, and he went after him. But the truck had taken off, and the cop couldn't catch him. The police got the surveillance video from the first store. It turned out this jerk had been following me the entire time I was shopping. I saw him on surveillance footage following me through the store. I saw him follow me out close enough to grab my elbow. I saw footage of him circling the lot in his truck, waiting for me to pull out when I took too long to unload my cart. My heart sank. I was able to remember 6 of 7 digits of his plate and the make and model of his truck. In the end, the cops did nothing. They said that it was a he said, she said, since the surveillance video didn't catch him doing anything particularly unlawful, and it was a losing case to try to charge him with anything. I ended up trading vehicles with a friend for a couple of months to try to feel safer and went on with my life. I had no idea what this disgusting piece of crap did just a handful of months later. Until almost 15 years had passed. I was watching a Discovery ID show about the kidnapping and murder of Sandy Jeffers. I almost fell out of my seat when I saw the mug shot of her killer, Aaron Leesky. It was him. I was so disgusted that law enforcement did nothing in my case that I tracked down the investigator in the murder case. And after verifying some things about his vehicle that were changed in the TV reenactment to weed out people making crap up, she took my contact info and official statement. She could neither confirm nor deny that my run-in was with Ski, but qualified her statement by saying, "At least you don't have to worry about him anymore, because he got life without parole." I only wish something could have been done when he terrorized me. Perhaps things would have been different for Sandy.